Good morning, everyone. This is Ron. It is Saturday morning, a little after 10 a.m., and we will begin our session. Believe it or not, this month is practically gone already. It's already the 28th of January. So uh, we have learned a lot. We have witnessed a lot, uh, and I think also grown a lot this month, the first month of the year. So, okay, we were welcome in February with the same enthusiasm. Uh, that when we last met, last Monday, we talked from Luke, the 21st chapter. Well, first of all, we opened up with a question that George had, and that was discussed at length. And we went into a little bit of Luke, the 21st chapter, when we looked at portions of that. We didn't look at it verse by verse, of course, but the part of it uh, were a couple of things that Nick had said that kind of got my attention. Uh, Primarily, that 25th verse saying there will be signs in the sun, the moon, the stars, and upon the earth. And we talked about that a little bit, kind of linking that to again to his discussion. And we talked about what it meant to for there to be earthquakes and famines in the land and that sort of thing. Uh, we also talked about the widow not being that these verses, of course, not being word value what they say, but looking at it from a spiritual perspective of who that widow was, and looking at it as from the insight being that we are that widow who have cast away all those uh, humanly attributes in your masculinity and all those things that may have had value to you at one point, and now your offering is purely what you have from your being, and we kind of linked that all up to where we are today uh, as mankind globally, where we are and what our aim, and not losing focus on who we are and what we hope to accomplish or will accomplish, not hope, will accomplish. So that's where we were last week. I want to see first if there are any questions on any of that stuff, or please feel free to ask Nick anything that Nick may have discussed as well Saturday and Sunday. And also as well, I know it's a lot. I'm gonna hush in a second, but a lot has happened this week. So if there are any questions and or comments on some of the things that we have seen, please feel free. Okay, thank you.
Um, if there are no questions, I want to address a couple of things before we move forward. Um, as you know, I was not on at all last weekend, and most of you probably know the reason. However, um, the recordings are there all the time, and there are a couple of things that I want to address. We are we're on we're on the phones. We're on Zoom because we have been charged with the responsibility of bringing correction and direction to humanity, because humanity has been a bit off course for quite some time, especially when it comes to interpersonal relationships based on race and gender. And if we are to correct those things that are religious, we are also to correct those things which are political and social as well. And there are things that couple of things I heard that was not very pleasing, and I have heard them before, did not address them because I thought that they were a fluke, but obviously they aren't. First of all, I want to speak to rather the idea of black women, in particular, not being supportive of black men based upon education or whatever. I am not the only one who questioned what I'm about to address. And one of the major reasons I'm addressing it is because others have shown deep concern for them. So the idea of black women being non-supportive to black males, that could not be further from the truth. And that is one of the reasons that we say to you guys, please be careful about what you read and be even more careful about what you embrace when you read it. This study that was referenced, I've not read the study at all. However, I don't doubt its existence. This study was based upon the psychological principles and sociological principles of Europeans in reference to our people. And even if it were African women or males or anyone doing this study, it was based on those principles. And those principles have always been a method to diminish our humanity and at the same time put as much distance between us as possible. Those studies, or that study in particular, and the comments about this are nothing new. This has been going on since the inception of slavery, pitting men against black males against black women, and vice versa. I want to say this about the women of African descent. African women have always been supportive of not just the males in this race, in this dilemma that we see ourselves in. If it were not for the strength and support of that African woman, none of us would exist. And before we embark on the embracing of these studies, please ask yourself this: if she was not supportive of us as males, then why is it that she allowed herself to be raped? And because she knew if she fought against it, her man was going to be killed and possibly all of her children. How many times has she submitted to rape because she did not want her children to be sold to someone else? And I remember a community in Union, and that community existed not too long ago. And in that community, white men would go to black men's home and walk up on the porch and say something like, "Jim, I won't be long," and go in there and lay with his wife. And nothing he could do other than be killed and have his whole family burned to death, other than her allowing that to happen. So I do not, for a moment, accept or embrace the idea that black women are not supportive. And I don't accept the idea that they're not as supportive if they are quote-unquote educated, because we have a false sense of what education is anyway. We sometimes are too blind to see that education is not about always going to school. Getting a degree does not mean you're educated. You could be a trained fool if just because you have a degree. There are people who who have never set foot on a college campus. There are people who have never completed high school, and they are very, very much educated. Education is not based upon whether or not you can get a job. Education is based on skill set. We have lost our sense of developing skill sets based on the matriculation through institutions or apprenticeships. Now, our education is predicated on whether or not corporate America accepts you, and that could not be further from the truth when it comes to what education is all about. In order for us to understand that principle, we should look at the origin of education itself. The origin of education did not start with the Greeks. It started long before. Matter of fact, the Greeks weren't even educated, period. They were running around Europe ignorant, not knowing what was going on around them until they were educated in Egypt and in Kemet. And if you care to do research, you will find that it took Pythagoras 15 years to get accepted into the education system of Egypt. And the reason it was so difficult is because education was considered sacred. And the sacredness of education meant that it was related to the reality of our spirituality and the understanding that we are God. And so we need to take those things into consideration before we start buying someone else's definition or someone else's reality about what education is. So I find that very, very distasteful. And that was one other thing that I wanted to address. I had spoken to Ron last night that I wanted to speak to this if I am on. And the other one is escaping me. Ron, do you remember what it was?
No, sir. I'm thinking right now. I
Education. I'm sorry, it's women, females.
Yeah.
Did it have something to do with Foundation and Greater New Faith?
Yes. That
Yeah.
my concern with that is this: we have been so indoctrinated with divisiveness until we have become perfecters of it. The idea of Greater New Faith and Foundation being compared to each other, with one being better than the other one, is one of the most despicable things that I've ever heard. And that is an attempt to put enmity between us. We are one group, always have been, always will be. Yes, our approaches may be different, but we are not different. There is absolutely nothing that divides us, and we will not allow anything to divide us. And when I say our approaches are different, well, I can take that even further. Nick doesn't teach the way I do, and neither does Audrey present the way Nick does, and Kathy or Ron or George. All of us present differently. And the reason we present differently is because people learn differently. And our exposures are different. We are different in terms of our presentations, but we are not different in terms of our goals. We're not different in terms of our callings. We're not different in terms of our obligations to each other and to mankind. We are traveling the same journey, and without just because one was located in the upstate and the other in the Midlands, it does not divide us. It does not mean we're different, because if we're going to look at it on those bases, then we have to further subdivide it, with Nick being in Maryland and Sheldon, New York, and Georgia and Laverne are there in Philly. So divisions will not be accepted at all. And since I'm talking about this, let me make another correction observation. If we don't speak positively and understand or seek understanding of the true nature of our purpose and our journey, then that is destructive to the whole of mankind, and we cannot allow that to happen. And as I pondered this last evening, what happened with this is what came to my mind is that something was said some time ago, and I think it was quite out of order. And I let it go, not so much purposely as not to dignify it, but because we move so fast. The term poor white trash was used, and I would ask us to refrain from saying poor white trash because that is no different than saying nigger. There are contextual ways. That sometimes, in order to express the context of something, those principles, those words are used. But just in flippant language, no, that's totally unacceptable. And there is absolutely nothing about us as a group of teachers, a group of travelers on this celestial ball called Earth, seeking to bring order and seeking to bring interpersonal relationships to a stronger place in this earth realm. There's nothing arrogant about that at all. It is simply a reality of who we are. We are Elohim. We are God, and there is nothing on the face of this earth, or there is nothing in the other world that says anything differently. The only thing that says differently is religion. We know who we are, and under no circumstances will we accept that, because in our years past, we were deemed to be, I know I was, as being arrogant because I had the audacity to sit in the classroom and talk about the brutality and the trauma that we as Africans received at the hands of enslavers. I was called arrogant because I had the audacity to challenge the norm when the norm was set up as a mechanism to diminish my humanity as well as others. I was called arrogant because I had the audacity to express the research that I had done and challenging the research that some said they had done. I challenged the idea that civilization, Greeks were the fathers of civilization. I challenged the idea that the Greeks are the ones who were the greatest philosophers, and all philosophy grew out of Greece. I challenged that because I knew it was a lie. And if I am to be deemed arrogant simply because I'm telling the truth, then so be it. However, keep in mind that that is a label that runs off me like water on the duck's back. It does not indict me, neither does it cause me to pause in what I see the truth to be and what I speak as the truth. And God in heaven knows that our whole purpose is to find truth and to express it so that it can be put in the macro for the benefit of humanity. And when we talk about macro, we've said it 1,000 times. We're simply talking about the spiritual essence of our being communicating throughout the realm of the spirit, meaning that energy passes back and forth between each of us, between all humans. And that is one of the reasons we are teaching things and we are hearing it as we go along. And if we were wrong, then those things that we thought before they happened, and those things that we spoke of before they happened, when they happened, does that mean it was coincidental, or does it mean that those were our desires being met? I choose to believe that they were our desires being met because I have witnessed so much in the past where our desires have been expressed and the outcome came to a reality. So here we are, engaged in an opportunity, a golden opportunity, to bring humanity to a place of unicity without regard to race or gender. Here we are, having a golden opportunity to tear down the walls that separate us based on economics, based on education, based on race, misogyny, race, religion, and gender. So I say all of this to say, please, let us stay on course and let us be willing to speak to those things that comes up that are an affront to what we are about, or that those things that have in the past sought to divide us. Am I saying that it's not going to come up again? No, I'm not. But I am saying we need to address it respectfully when it does come up. And in addressing it, we're simply doing what we're doing with everything that's involved in religion. We are putting the truth about it in the macro so that we can live beyond it and become as we were created to be. And that is to fully embrace the essence of who we are, and to fully embrace that means that we fully embrace that we are God. I'm done unless there are questions or comments. Thank you, and I appreciate this time.
No, thank you. Questions, y'all?
I have a
If
question.
okay.
Sorry. I don't want to carry us too far away from what Pastor's saying, but I think this is sort of interrelated. And I seriously have a question about this video that they released last night of this 5 black cops beating the guy up. I'm just having trouble with the fact that, I mean, within 2 weeks they are fired. Everybody's calling them inhumane, blah, blah, blah. And it feels so much to me like they are now scapegoats. I mean, they're not totally innocent, but it feels to me like they are now scapegoats. I mean,
You're right. You're right. You're absolutely right.
I mean, the language that was in the media very soon after they were arrested, you heard none of that with the white cops that were arrested.
You're right.
It's just,
I mean, they deserved every word of it. They deserved everything the media said about them. They are no different than the enslaved tracker who they had trying to catch Harriet Tubman. They are no different than the enslaved Africans who...
no, I know they're not innocent because they've been co-opted by the system. But I was just hearing what the media was saying and how people were reacting. And they didn't react like that when white cops did whatever.
I'm glad they did it. I really am. And the reason I'm glad they did it is because I want the rest of the the black cops, who think that they are one with those white cops. They think that they are going to, quote unquote, support them no matter what they do. They need to hear that. They need to hear that regardless of what you do, you still are not accepted, and you still are deemed to be less than human. Police union are coming to their defense. Nowhere.
Nowhere.
No. Nowhere.
I guess too, my thought too, as I heard what Audrey is talking about, is how can they close that door now? How can you close that door when you have condemned these guys as readily as you did? And if and when this happens again, what do you say about the next episode, regardless of the race of the policeman? You've opened this up now.
I've been thinking about this too. It was deeply, deeply disturbing to me, um, on several levels. However, um, not only did Tyree, not only was he maimed and injured and died, but those remaining that are going to be maimed, injured, some are going to rise up and see themselves, see the mirror of themselves in all of this that happened. And some are going to stay in the hellish jail they create for themselves because they can't see it. One of the thing that stood out to me is that this man was cuffed and kicked, punched and cursed and pepper sprayed and tased and beaten with a billy stick. All of the things that go into the mix of being an atrocious, a heinous crime to me in a sense against humanity. However, all of these things had to be seen because they're going to be family members, and I empathize with the family members, but I also empathize with the family members of the policemen who didn't see this coming either. And the thing that it reminds me of is that every single incident like this has to be seen for what's underneath. And although it's so visual and it hurts us so much on a physical level, on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, it hurts even more. But it also has that capacity at a spiritual level, touch more people so that they see themselves in some of this. Would I have done this? Would I have done this? When I'm caught up in a group like this, do I go along with the crowd just to do it? Do I have so much hatred in me that I would allow it to come out in such a way that I would maim and injure another person? And that's not just physically, but another person's their reputation, any of that, all the things we've talked about. All of this has shown me this physical response to what has happened to this young man who had a life, who had a child, who had a mama he called for, 80 yards from his home. That it just shows me everybody needs to see that this is them. What happened to him is them. And what happened to the policemen, it could have been them if they allowed themselves to continue in the animalistic, barbaric state that they're in. So I have empathy, so much for the parents and for the family and for the acquaintances and relatives of Tyree. Also have it for these young policemen who also have families and who have no idea, who had no idea what they did and how it would impact not only this young man, Tyree Nichols' family, but their own. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead, Pastor, please.
I was just going to say that this I had to be off for a second. I don't know whether it's said or not. So if I'm repetitious, please forgive me. I feel like this had to take place for the mere fact of how it was handled throughout the media. However, I believe that the greater purpose for it is change, because we have said from day one, without exposure of everything that needs to be altered, there is no hope for it to be, because we have to see what we are crying out for to change. And this is the first time this has taken place. For example, this is not the first time that black policemen have killed a black male. They killed Freddie Gray in Baltimore. And it took months, if not over a year, for all of them to go to trial. And the unions were defending them. And the media was not as vocal about the brutality of it all as they are about this. So I'm saying that this happened at the right time, being orchestrated by the universe for the express purpose of bringing to the minds of people who are open the reality of what's been taking place forever and a day without anybody really being punished for it. There was in Minnesota, I'm sure it was Minnesota, Wisconsin, where the black officer killed a white woman, and he actually was in a position where he should not have been put in jail, but he was. He's in prison now because it was a white woman he shot as opposed to a black woman. And there have been incidents in South Carolina where things like that have taken place. So right now, the national, international exposure that is getting is the thing that's going to bring about a change in the policing system. Because one of the things that irks me is that they need training, that the system is broken. The system is not broken. It's doing what it's supposed to do, doing what it's designed to do. They have training. They are trained to do exactly what they are doing. The academy training is superficial at best. Even in the academy, there are those instructors in the academy who, off the record, speak to them like they are the guardians of the guardians of this world, and have the freedom to snatch a life from anyone they choose to, especially black folk. There are, all of us know that the reason that there is crime at the rate that it is in our communities is the lack of employment, the lack of a whole lot of other things. So I do think that this is going to bring place of not exposure only, but a place of reconciliation for a plethora of things that are related to the type of policing or the slave patrols that drives through our community or patrols our communities at all times. Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions or comments?
Ron, this is Evelyn. Good morning, family. Everybody who looks like us is not us. And what I mean by that, we have to remember that we're concepts. And Barbara had mentioned that the young man had cried out to his mother. But I have a question. He may have called out for his mother, but was he also crying out to Mother Universe or to the universe? That's my question.
He was crying out to his mom, his physical mom. He was only 80 yards from her house, and and that's where he was trying to make his way to when he jumped up and ran. And his conscious mind was towards his mom, his biological mom. Now, subconsciously, I do believe that deep inside of us, there is that cry to the universal mother, to our womb. And the reason I say that is because I remember very clearly, and some of you probably remember the same thing. There was a period of time when black males on TV would all say, "Hi, Mom." All of them spoke to their mom. So I think there was something maybe subconscious about that. Anyone else?
Well, I want to add something else to that as well. So that's why we have to be careful about these statistics that come out about black women in general, because the first person you cry out to is your black mama or your melanated mama, I'll say. So that's why we have to be careful about these statistics, because a lot of them are not true. That's all I want to say.
Well, George Floyd cried out for his mama too, but he knew his mama had already passed away. So
Right.
that was a universal cry out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that we need to, in addition to what Evan said about the melanated mother, when we talk about black women, in mind that the moms are black, the moms are melanated, and when we seek to denigrate, we're just following in the footsteps of those who have put an enmity between us, saying that the African families are split, they're divided, they don't have males in the home, and that's why the children are the way they are. And you're the one who sold us away from each other. You're the one who destroyed our family structures. And now you are doing as you do with everything else. You're going to use that against us, and cause us in some ways to see ourselves as less than, because we are experiencing the effects of what you did. Now, I was reared in a home without my daddy, but my uncles were there. There were males in the neighborhood who were there. So this whole concept of a father not being in a home, it means something, but it does not mean what we have been told it means. And the trifleness of black males has been put in our face forever and a day. But since we want to look at statistics, statistically speaking, there are 60 to 70% more white fathers who are behind on child support than there are African fathers. Thank you.
I would like to bring something else to our attention, and I want to ask Pastor to speak to this and see if we have an answer, or anyone else for that matter. This week or in the last couple of weeks, I get my time mixed up sometimes. We've had 2 shootings that involved Asian communities, and in one instance, 10 people died, and in another, 7 people died. As we study these things and become more aware of who we are, my heart just goes out to them and everybody else when you see this craziness. I can't imagine your family going to a festive event and not coming home because of gun violence. And if you, I don't remember, I was going to write it down. If you look at the Chinese New Year, which is what they were celebrating, a lot of it sound like this year, 2023, is what we're talking about. Love and a refreshing and a newness coming in and new energy. So it reminded me of some of the things we had talked about. But I guess my question was, I was really surprised that in one case, the shooter was in his 60s, and I want to say in the other case, he was in his 70s. Both Asian males, but that any insight into that? What do you guys think about that? Any thoughts at all?
I don't have any insight into that.
Okay.
This is Nick. I don't have any particular insights into that either, although I think it's just a different social and cultural ways in which people essentially allow themselves to, well, are driven insane in various ways.
Okay.
It's showing me that there is no culture, no ethnic group that's immune from the debasement of what can happen when someone comes from the perspective of their animalistic behavior. The thing that I thought about was that it may happen in other countries, parts of Japan, Asian countries, but it's never happened like this in the United States to this extent, where we saw these older Asian men, not even younger Asian guys, doing mass shootings. And so what it says to us is that regardless of age, ethnicity, race, whatever, we have the responsibility for continuing on and putting things in the macro. Because remember, we said that all of these are energies, and even cultures that have not succumbed to energies of rage and mass shootings and killings to some extent are impacted by it. And so we have the responsibility to cover everyone still, to keep our focus on those energies, not the entities, but those energies that they represent. And that's the way I saw it.
Thank you. I'll tell you a thought I had that I don't have an answer to yet. One of the things I thought about was the scripture that talked about all the people who had infirmities trying to get to the pool, and the man saying there's nobody to stir the waters or to get. I think the water is being stirred as truth is coming out, and that is part of the agitation. Things are being drawn out as much as being drawn in, and these things are terrible and extremely emotional, but at a same time necessary, I would suppose. So that thought just came to mind as healing takes place, as you stir the waters to get the truth from the bottom of the well. Other things are going to surface as well, and maybe that's where we are. So I agree. We just stay fast on what the direction we're going in. Any other questions or comments? On anything that may have come to your attention.
Ron, this is Evelyn again.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you guys think that we're going to see that more criminal activities will be exposed because of what we're doing? And we're always saying that it will get worse before it gets better. So do you feel that we'll be seeing more criminal activity being exposed and out there so everyone can see what's really happening? It's making people wake up. That's what I'm getting.
Okay. Anybody, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is Nick. The true criminal activity that needs to be exposed in order to catalyze that awakening is not amongst the regular people. It is amongst the people in positions of power, the elite, quote unquote. Their criminal activity is what essentially has to be revealed in order to trigger that kind of awakening on a socio-cultural level. And all the basis of all this is in our spiritual transition, of course. But we, the regular people, are very much aware of criminal activity and are affected by it, of course. Part of what I think is happening is that the increase in the, let's say, like pressure of the environment causes more people to react to it. So like when we talk about the transition to Age of Aquarius and what that means spiritually, that is a change in the spiritual environment, and it increases the rate at which people must adapt to it, or the people must adapt to this environment more quickly in order to be at home and at peace within it, which means that there's a greater chance of more people reacting that much more negatively to it and that much more frequently. So America's always been kind of insane. But what we're coming to is a sort of psychic break collectively with our old self. And when that happens, the portion of the self that is sane must be able to dominate and then put to order the rest of the self that has gone insane. And perhaps dominate has a negative connotation, but the idea is that the sane aspect of self must direct and bring up the rest of self with it. So if we look at ourself collectively, whatever part of us is balanced in harmony to whatever extent, that part of us, which I believe we represent and everyone who is on a similar path represents, must be responsible for anchoring and drawing up the rest of us who have increasingly gone insane at a quicker rate. And perhaps insane is actually not the best word. I don't want to put that kind of necessarily negative connotation onto what everyone is going through, but the clear examples of people having psychic breaks, having completely lost self-control, having completely become ensnared in their own hatred and ego, are those examples are very clear. And those kind of mass shootings, examples of this sort of groupthink police brutality, are very much examples of those kinds of people who have fallen into traps that they laid for themselves in some ways. But all of that is part of what we have to learn to address, and our responsibility, at least within the context of this spiritual group, is to identify it spiritually so that we can sort of form a collective intention and attitude towards it. And then all of us in our individual lives, of course, is just to speak truth to power whenever possible, and be aware of the greater context that we exist within, socially, spiritually, etc., so that we can, as much as possible, be that anchor for balance whenever we encounter imbalance in other people or ourselves, etc. Thank you.
Nick, I embrace totally what you're saying, because I see it happening with those people in power. When I look at the documents that were found in Mike Pence's home and in Biden's, those top secret documents, what that's actually showing is the criminality at the top. You cannot tell me that you truly believe that this is criminal behavior, and these documents at all costs must be preserved and kept in a safe environment, and yet everybody and his mama has documents at their home, and now that's been exposed. Not for one moment should we think that this just started, or just started with Trump, or just popped up with Biden. This has been going on forever and a day. So this is part of the criminality that we are beginning to see pop up in those those hallways of power, and yet at the same time, seeing them being brushed off as not being so important, unless it's against somebody who you really don't like, and then all of a sudden it becomes something major. To me, even though Trump is the one who refused to give them back, all of them are criminals because of the way they handled the documents. So how can you brush it off from some and then put a E6 in jail? It wasn't even that. I think it's E5, a sergeant in jail for exposing criminality when the footage from the helicopters, the Black Hawks shooting, killing these innocent people, was shown to the public. This sergeant went to jail because it was classified material. And how are you going to classify criminality when it's against the Geneva Convention? So one goes to jail for exposing criminality, and three of them don't go to jail for having in their possession documents that's illegal to possess. So I think that's happening already. Thank you.
Yeah, the same with that woman, Reality, whatever her name is. When she let classified documents go public about the Russia investigation against Trump, she went to jail too. And here's Trump taking away classified documents, and he's not going to jail. And the rest of them aren't either.
Well, they are. They're going to allow the lady in Georgia to get a felony charge against Trump, though, so he can't run. That's what I believe. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Godspeed.
I'm just
I
wondering.
have one more thing and I'm done. I'm sorry, I yield.
Oh, I was just going to ask if we would see anything come out from Obama.
I wouldn't doubt it at all.
Goodness.
I want once we have spoken about this, I want to speak to something, bring our attention to something else rather. But yeah, I wouldn't doubt it if we would find out that there are documents held by Obama, and by the same token, Janice, I would doubt if he did not do it, because you know as well as all those on the phone know, if Obama had done what Biden did in terms of having no documents at his home while he was president, he would have been what? They would
Impeached and probably imprisoned.
Right. So
Hmm.
there are two ways to look at that when it comes to Obama, and I guess that's the definition of double standards, right?
Yeah.
Miss Evelyn?
I don't know if I should ask. or say what I'm gonna say now. I don't want to take you away, but I want to go back. Okay, I'll go ahead and say it, and I think I'm done for today. But anyway, I think about those Black officers who did what they did to that gentleman. When we do things like that, well, first I want to say we treat people how we feel inside. Am I not correct with that? And those guys beat him, but it was them who they were beating as well. Because those guys, I'm quite sure, police officers have so much pressure. And I'm not saying what they did was right, but I do feel that what they did it to themselves. There's something inside of them that, that they were putting out there. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. That is the case. And it doesn't excuse them, of course, but any violence done outside is violence projected externally is the result of internal something, definitely an out of balance state. And that is the case in all interactions that become violent. Now, that does not, as I said, excuse the person doing the violence, because it is worse to inflict that on other people than it is to hold it within yourself. And not that you should hold it within yourself, you should deal with it, but the way that you deal with it obviously is not to inflict it on other people.
And Nick, I see there is no self-love. We don't love ourselves. And it's evident because of how we see things in the universe. We treat each other nasty. People just say stuff to you and just, but I know I have to remember, because sometimes I see and hear things, it hurts, but I have to remember that there's no self-love. There is no self-love, and we got to come back to loving who we are, because that's what the universe is made of anyway. But that's all I wanted to say. It hurts, but I'm done.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. In terms of groups of people who lack self-love, Black cops, definitely at near the top of that list. And I'm not even saying there can't be quote unquote good cops. But what I am saying is they don't last very long. They either succumb to the groupthink, get kicked out, themselves get arrested or pressured by it. Eventually you can't be good. You have to go with the flow of the system, and the way the system is designed is to oppress.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Albert.
Yeah,
Nick, were you done? I'm
sorry.
Oh yeah, I'm done. Sorry.
I just don't want to cut you off. I'm sorry. Who is speaking?
Oh, it's Janice. Hey, Ron. I was just thinking while we were discussing this this murder essentially by these cops, and I watched the video this morning, and perhaps it's naive, but I was just trying to understand. I won't even say their rationale, but just, how they got to that point. With other videos, I could see arrogance, or, cops motivated by a sense for revenge or power, the need to dominate. You see bullies get into that line of work. And I was just watching these men and trying to understand what I was looking at. And I really struggled to put it together. And the only thing I could think was that maybe because they were so angry, even at the very beginning of the stop. And Nick mentioned the word insane. And I don't know, I just couldn't understand where that was coming from, how they even got there.
Yeah.
Maybe
I could tell you exactly what it is. When I first saw that, at first, I was like, what the hell did that guy do? Did he stalk one of the cops' daughters or something? I was like, what?
Yeah.
They something like that, but it kind of doesn't matter. What it was, anyone on the phone got from road rage? You understand what that feels like?
Yeah,
That's a form of
unfortunately.
insanity.
Mhm.
Now imagine that plus groupthink, plus you're a bully, plus you know you have authority over everyone. You no longer are connected to reality.
Okay.
But Nick, also, they were put on the street to do that.
Yeah.
The team, it's no different than the no-knock team that was in Detroit back in the day. They were put on the street to do that, to intimidate black folks. That's what their job was. And Miss Police Chief can say all she wants to say about, well, we did it to because of the elevated crime in Memphis. No. You did it to control the black community because you are no different in your mindset than are those who are above you, i.e. the white power structure. That's why you did it. Because if you wanted to control the crime in the community, then you would patrol with a different attitude. Because what they were doing actually was elevating crime in the community as opposed to dealing with it. You befriend the community when you want to change, when you want to deal with crime because you need eyes and ears. Kwame Nkrumah said that when you take over a nation, you don't have to change the police department. All policemen will be the same. They're going to be a police no matter where you put them. He said you have to change the leadership. You can take a policeman out of New York and put that policeman in Egypt. He's still going to be a policeman. It's the leadership. Everything that those policemen did came down from leadership. And the leadership of which I speak is the mindset of the chief, which the chief got from the mindset that she had when she was a policeman. And it goes on and on and on back to the slave patrols. Exactly the same principles are intact. And that is why I say it is BS when they talk about training at the academy. It is BS when they talk about doing psychological evaluations. All that's BS. It's all about teaching a pack mentality and the thin blue line that protects no matter what. That's what's taking place here. And that thin blue line is no different than the backwards collar. Pastors and priests protect each other also. Different professions protect each other. Policemen are the most deadly because theirs end up in death so often with the same people. Streets of our communities. We are assumed to be guilty, and we are target practice for those who want to put into action the violent tactics that they learned at the academy. Thank you. I still want to say something about the earth.
Okay, Pastor. Are there any questions or comments, y'all, on the subject at hand, or what Pastor just said?
I just found that helpful. Thank you to you both.
Pastor.
I think it's very important that we've discussed what we have in regards to what happened with those policemen. However, I also want us to look at something about the earth. I saw an article and I sent it to you guys, and prior to, I sent it to Nick, and we had an exchange through text messages about the earth. The article spoke about the earth, the core of the earth rotates, and the core of the earth is slowing down, or stopped rather, rotating, and it's about to reverse itself in terms of rotation. And what does all of that mean? So I would like to for us to address that, because I do believe that it speaks more to us than than we know. It tells us that we are closer to what our desires have been than what we have previously been made aware of. So I would like to ask some of those of you who are read the article, what did you gather from it? Did anyone read it other than Nick and me?
Well, I read it. Yeah, I particularly like that because there's no way it can reverse unless it stops. And I feel it as the attitudes and the energies in the earth are slowly changing, things coming to a halt and slowly reversing themselves. And I thought about all the things we've studied, the new energy that we are available to us, the age of Aquarius and the planets and all the other things that we have studied. I agree with you. We cannot think that we are the influencers of negative things happening and all the things coming to a surface and not see the positive things also coming to a surface. So I think this is a direct link to what we are studying. I think the rotation speaks of energy and attitudes, and I see it as a reversal of what has been in the earth up until now. It is the earth and the universe has waited for someone to take the reins and be responsible for the available energy that man has at his use to bring about change. That's the first thing that I thought.
Anyone else?
I can go more into that, I think. And thank you, Ron. When I first read it, just to give you a bit more context, you haven't read it. Just apparently this reversal happens roughly every 70 years or so. So that immediately spoke to me that is the sort of an average human lifespan. So the reversal of the core just is a generational shift that happens as the sort of average of a particular generation in the earth leaves and a new one sort of takes the previous position of the old one. So that kind of thing. And it just so happens with the coinciding of the sort of average baby boomer generation being on the decline or that kind of thing. So I think it is directly related to this shift in the consciousness that has authority, or the most amount of influence, I should say, over the way we do things. Thank you.
First of all, is there anyone else or comment? Question? Well, I also concur with what's being said in regards to the relationship with this occurrence and what we are being shown by the universe. I do not think that this was coincidental. As a matter of fact, unless you found something more on it, the article that I read wasn't but a few sentences, and it had a deep impact on me because I felt like, in during the course of our discussion, Nick and me through a text message, that this was speaking to an opportunity for us to have an interpersonal relationship with each other based upon the humanity of us all, as opposed to anything else that society has developed. I think that it grants us the privilege of experiencing what it feels like to be one with humanity and to dispense with the false narrative that race and money divides us, to dispense with the false narrative that we are divided along the lines of gender. I think that this gives us a grand opportunity to see what we were created to be in reality, as opposed to us discussing it. We are experiencing it, but we will be experiencing it on a broader plane than what we are at the current time. There are so many things that are taking place in the universe that speaks very loudly to the journey that we are on. And in the past, these messages have been silenced by the church. Because, and when I say the church, I'm talking about from Catholicism on, all the church, the mosque, the synagogue, all of them have been silenced by that. And now that the search is on for truth, they're beginning to reverberate again. Because I struggled years with trying to understand how astrology was so demonic when the symbols of the astrology were the same symbols that adorn the flags of each tribe, of each Hebrew tribe. I struggle to understand that. Or if it's demonic, why is it there? I struggle to understand if numerology is so wrong. Why are there so many numbers in the scriptures that allude to different aspects of our lives? So now that we are where we are, that deafening silence has become a loud voice for anyone who wants to hear it. And when we hear that voice and we embrace the sayings of that voice, it is then that our nature, our changes, our attitudes shift. Our journey remains the same, but we begin to see the essence of that journey with a clearer vision. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments on any of that, guys?
Well, one little thing that caught my eye is when the guy said the rotation is either gonna reverse itself or whatever, and that we won't feel a thing, there won't be any cataclysm, blah, blah. But how does he know that? I mean, because our bodies are so in sync with what the earth is doing. If there's a change, won't our bodies intuitively know that to some degree?
I believe our bodies will. And
Yeah.
I believe that one of the reasons that we have not experienced these things in the past is because we have told that they don't exist, and subliminally we have ignored them. That's my take on it. I think someone else is about to say something.
No, I agree with you. When Audrey was speaking, I also thought about the oceans. Maybe the fluidity of the earth does feel it. Maybe we felt it and not recognize what it was. And now that we're attuned to it, now that we are becoming sensitive to spiritual things, we may feel it and know exactly what is taking place. So I agree with you. That's all.
Yeah, it's going to represent some change in the way we may not understand, but it's going to be change.
Well, roughly 70 years ago, and these numbers are all kind of rough, was the civil rights movement and the sort of hippie 1960s, right? Horrifyingly, yes, that was like 60 years ago almost, but
Yeah, and aren't we coming into the age of Aquarius too?
Correct. My point is that we 100% we feel these things. We just don't recognize them as such. Like Pastor Richard was saying, there are all kinds of things that we unknowingly respond to the influence of without being able to sort of identify them internally as that influence because we don't know any better. And that is kind of the whole idea with the process of knowing the self. It is learning to recognize the nature of the things that you have access to and are influenced by. And a lot of that is present in our subconscious, or what we are unconscious of about ourselves in terms of what we are interacting with and what we feel. We just don't realize we're feeling it, etc. And so we end up behaving or reacting or responding in a particular way to it without knowing that it is that. So we've always seen these kinds of changes. We just didn't realize where they were from.
Anyone else? Questions or comments? I hope this has all made sense to us.
Ron,
Yes, sir.
before we go, let me ask this question. I want to ask this question of everyone. I know it's pretty clear with what we discussed previously about the police murdering that young man. The Earth core rotated, and the relationship to the universe and us. I want to ask if it's clear, if there's a clear understanding about what we are saying in regards to that. If not, or there are questions, and if you don't know how to ask the question, just say you don't quite see it, and let's try to find out what portion of it you don't understand. Okay? So I guess I'm asking those of you who are on the line if there are questions about it, or if you do indeed understand it. That's the better question, I think. Thank you,
Yes, I
Dennis.
understand.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're at a good place to pause. If you guys, we've discussed a lot of things, and I had a lesson that'll take us in another direction. I also recognize the fact that I think the stuff that Nick went over was extremely important, and it resonated with me deeply. And wanted to know if he was done, or if there were any questions that I asked on the onset about anything that he said. But before we go into any of those directions, are you guys okay with today? You want to continue, or should we put a pin in it until tomorrow morning? How do you feel?
Well, did Nick have anything more?
I was going to ask, what was I talking about?
I could look at my notes and see, because I don't remember specifics. And think one of
Well, if you had something you wanted me to continue with, otherwise I can keep going for a little bit.
well, that I just remember you giving us the concept of what heaven and hell really was, and moving away from hell, moving away from your place of balance, and being more emotional, or ego and greed driven, that kind of thing. A couple of things I wrote down, but I was trying to write fast. Yeah.
Oh, no problem. I suppose there is something I would like to continue with on that. In previous, and that relates to the a couple of things. I mentioned the use of the term or the word fire that appears in many places in the New Testament, and its relationship to the concept that has been given to us by religion, the concept of hell, that is. And I said fire of salvation and the fire that burns you, quote unquote, in the experience of hell are one and the same thing. And I wanted to expand on that a bit more.
Term fire.
Was that a question? Sorry, someone was breaking up.
Say it one more time. You're firing something on things. Say that one more time.
The fire of salvation and the fire that burns you, quote unquote, in the experience of hell are one and the same.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Sir.
You'll be on, right, Nick?
Oh yeah, I was going to continue with that now, unless everyone wanted to pause, and I'll pick that up tomorrow if we want to pause.
Okay. Let's pause because tomorrow when we talk about that, we won't have all the other things we've talked about digested now.
Sure.
Okay. Excellent day, y'all. We talked about a lot today, and some of it pretty bad things that needed to be discussed. And I thank everyone for their input. But I want to tell you, I feel we're in an awesome place. We're in an awesome place, and let's continue with our energy and where we are. I feel good about who we are and what we are. I am comfortable with who I am and who we are collectively, and that's an awesome thing to me. And I am comfortable with who we are. So thank you again. Questions, comments, and all your energy. And if there is nothing else to grab our attention, hope you guys have an awesome day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.